I was literally trapped in corporate prison.
Well, it would cost me money to hire people, so I'm just going to do all the jobs myself.
You know how many businesses are held back? I mean, in the trillions. We think about our companies like jobs, and it's a fatal flaw. We were transaction dependent. And when transactions came to a screeching halt, we emerged a much stronger, better company, and it's what we are today.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Pick Now podcast, the podcast about the difficult choices that entrepreneurs have to make in order to build the company of their dreams. Today, I am with Eric Togneri. Eric is the co-founder of Neri Capital for the last, 20 years, Eric? And also, more recently, the founder of What Is My Biz Worth? Eric, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, I'm Jeff. We've been talking for a couple of months now, and I'm very grateful that you're giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
I've really been looking forward to this conversation, Eric, and let's start by just diving in deep. You and I have talked a little bit. I know you a little bit and know you a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. You told me that when you graduated from college, your plan was to go off and get some skills for 2 years and then become an entrepreneur. How long did it take you to actually make that leap, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, so for anybody that's listening, I was literally trapped in, what I consider now to be corporate prison. And that is that, really an entrepreneurial spirit that thrives within a corporate environment, but never quite fits in. And so I was always considered, I guess, they try to coin people like me as intrapreneurs, right?
Right.
We're entrepreneurs in a corporate world. But the truth is that we're just stifled entrepreneurs. And I lived that for the better part of 15 years, and with great companies, by the way. I don't regret any of the companies that I worked for and the opportunities they gave me. But my 2-year plan, a year and a half in, became I got promoted and then promoted, and then promoted and then promoted. And that just went on for the next decade plus. And the yearning for striking out on my own, for having individual impact, for being an entrepreneur, everything that means, having the buck stop with me, the whole thing, it never left me. And I finally made the leap. And it really became evident to me when I was sitting, I'd worked for L'Oreal for the first decade or so of my career, and in major consumer brands like Advil and Robitussin and Centrum Vitamins for the last 5 years of my corporate career. It became very clear to me that regardless of the responsibility that I had, that I was never, ever going to be able to achieve at least the impact that I wanted to achieve in my life as an entrepreneur without leaving that environment, regardless of corporate success. So I took my last promotion. Frankly, I call it promoted to entrepreneur. And I took my last promotion 20 years ago, almost to the day. And
wow,
so here I am.
Well, congratulations. What do you think it is? I mean, we could speculate about entrepreneurs generally, but you're the entrepreneur that's in front of me. Like, how do you think you are wired differently than the person who, got all those promotions and wanted to continue on in that corporate career? I mean, I did 27 plus years of various corporate jobs before I decided to go out on my own. And I didn't have that urge from the start. It was more of a ongoing calling almost. But like, what do you think is that thing that is different that makes it worth the risk to say, yeah, I'm going to try this?
I think first and foremost, Jeff, I'd love to hear your own story at some point, but, for me, it wasn't seen as a risk. The corporate thing was seen as no risk because it was easy. I could show up and I could make a difference and I could do my thing and it was easy, right? But it was unfulfilling is really what it was. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you call it DNA or what you want to call it. That's the essence of who we are as people. And I don't want to get too philosophical and deep about it, but the fact of the
Oh,
matter is,
I encourage that, Eric.
well, okay, well,
Feel
I mean,
free.
to the extent I can tell you that. And my wife kicks me about this all the time because she really liked, $250,000 a year salaries and great benefits all the time, right?
Right.
As far as the eye could see, and stock options and the rest. And so what was inside of me was really this thing that, I don't know, I think it like like an architect or like a builder, right? I
Mm-hmm.
want something that was me, something I created, something I was designated as that would have not been here without him, right? And so that's the philosophical part of it. I mean, which is, I don't know what causes me to want that, but I did not want to leave behind, hey, he was a kick-ass head of, shopper marketing and finance for North America brands for Advil, Robitussin, and Centrum vitamins.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
I was that.
He filled this box on the org chart remarkably
I filled
well.
a box on the org chart versus I created something. And so that was a sort of an internal yearning, if you want to call it that. So I don't know if that answers the question specifically, but that was what made me say, you know what, this isn't a risk. I mean, it was risk-free staying in corporate America, pretty much. Hey, I could have just gone over and represented, who knows, J&J or any other company and sold their brands and did their thing, or I could create my own brand and be my own thing. And the buck stopped with me and me live and die on the merits of my production.
Right. Do you think your father being an entrepreneur had anything to do with you wanting to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think for you guys that don't know, when I founded Togneri Capital Partners, I co-founded it. As we mentioned earlier, the co-founder was my dad. And he was an entrepreneur of great success in his own right and definitely a role model. It's funny when I try to reflect on it because I don't remember any moment where my dad ever coached me or taught me really anything, to be honest with you. I don't remember a moment of that. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, Eric, come and be my apprentice. It was never that. It was always osmosis, right? I was around it. And so I am not in any way, shape, or form trying to imply that he did not have a huge impact on who I am and what I believe and the way I think. I think he did have a profound impact. He just did it by leading by example and me watching.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I have a soon-to-be 17-year-old, and both of his parents are self-employed. And I wonder how he will look at the world of employment and careers and so on differently, not because we've said, W-2 jobs are bad, but just because that's what he's been around. And
is safe, right? He knows people can actually do that. See, that's the unknown, right? So I'll tell you this. This is an amazing thing. So I resigned from, at the time, it was called Wyeth Consumer Healthcare. That was Advil, Robitussin, Centrum, and Chapstick and all that. I resigned and to start this company. And usually when employees resign, because it was Northern New Jersey, and that's where all the pharmaceutical companies are, they escort you out the door because you're going to a competitor.
Right.
Well, I was not. I was graduating to entrepreneur. And so they're like, holy crap. And we've got no backfill for you. Eric, can you hang around? Can you hang around? And I'm like, yeah, there's no super urgency. Yeah, I'll hang around, and it turned out to be 5 weeks. 5 weeks of purgatory. I don't recommend for anybody, by the way. 5 weeks. But here's what happened during that 5 weeks. Do you know how many times people that I knew for years and people that I never met came because I was, a director and had a, closed door and all the rest, came to my office, closed the door behind them, and basically said, "How did you do it? How did you make this move? How? I've been thinking about this my whole life." I realized that promoted entrepreneur is a real thing in corporate America for lots of people, not most, but lots.
Yeah.
And so I know it's a side note to what you were originally asking and the way you talked about your kids, but there are so many people out there starving for examples that say you can do this too. Yeah. You can do this too. I was just like this director that would sit up in front of the room and I'd have 100 people and I would dance for the CEO of Pfizer, for God's sakes.
Right.
And I could do it well. And yet I had the courage to leave. And I didn't even think about it as courage. I just thought about it as I'm breaking out. But I think, when it comes to your children, and I cut you off there, man, but I just want to finish this thought. When it comes to your children, Jeff, I guarantee you, they're like those people opening my door and shutting it behind them and going, "How did you do this?" They don't even have to do that because they already know, because they have their parents.
Right. Right. Yeah. You're reminding me there are moments through your career where you do something that maybe is a little bit outside the norm or a little bit, nonconformist. And the first one for me was, I had been told, and this is in the mid 90s, I was at a law firm in Chicago, and I had been told I was doing well. I was on the partner track, and I got another opportunity, and I left. And that was not done at the time. Like people were why are you leaving?
Oh,
like
you're a pariah.
The road has been,
right?
The road has been laid out for you.
Yeah.
But I trusted, I took a look and it's like, for me, looking at what the partners were doing and looking, how they seemed to be, like, I didn't see myself in that role. I was curious. I was curious about, the bigger world out there. I saw the legal role as like the one where your job was to say no all the time. And I wanted to say yes. So I wanted to go into a more creative role. I wanted to go into a consulting space. And I ended up that took me to managing large client relationships and all these other things. And it was
set the stage for everything.
It was
next.
it was just having the courage to follow my own gut and my own intuition.
That's so awesome.
Because up to that point in my life, I had done everything that I was supposed to
do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wasn't happy. I was like, maybe I need to figure this out for myself.
I agree. So I went with L'Oreal for about 10 years and it was the best. Gosh, no kids, dual incomes, 20s, beautiful, great company I was working for, not achieving my entrepreneurial goals. But as far as corporate life goes, as good as it's going to get, right?
Right.
And just having fun and just, living life, and that's the way, things went for me. And I was doing what I was supposed to do. Right. The entire industry I was in went through a restructuring, and they basically said to me, because I had made enough of a mark in terms of how they do sort of talent assessments at the lowest levels at L'Oreal, that they, instead of firing half of their sales force, which they did, they offered me 2 promotions, and they said, go to Dallas or go to Pittsburgh, your choice. And I chose Pittsburgh only because I was getting my MBA at the University of South Carolina. And at the time, the executive MBA program at the University of Pittsburgh was in the top 5 in the country, and I think it's still top 20, but still, they were ahead of the curve when it came to online and that kind of education. And so I chose Pittsburgh, and guess what? Because I chose Pittsburgh, I got Giant Eagle, which for you guys that are listening and are in Western Pennsylvania and Ohio, is several hundred, basically Kroger-like. That's a national brand. Yeah, Kroger-like.
Yeah, we had Giant when I was in Maryland. We had Giant was our
so
store.
I got Giant Eagle as a headquarter account. which was headquartered in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then Rite Aid bought Thrifty Payless on the West Coast. And guess what? I was sitting in the backyard and I got Thrifty Payless. And now now people don't believe it at the time, but Thrifty Payless and Rite Aid together was the largest drug chain in the country, bigger than CVS and bigger than Walgreens when I had it.
Wow.
And so I had a top 4 customer in the country. And so everything was going fabulous, right? And so why in the world would someone like that get wooed away? Well, I got wooed away because somebody just offered me more money to do the same thing. And then they promoted me and they promoted me. And I'm telling you, Jeff, for the more philosophical things that you want to talk about, what ended up happening is that at each step of the way, I got the high of the promotion and then I got the low of the reality, which was I'm just another cog in the machine versus I'm building and running the machine.
Right. I'm just a different box in the org chart, making a little more money, but other than that, nothing's changed.
Yeah. And everybody's looking at me going, you ungrateful son of a gun, right? You should be loving life. Everybody around you is 10, 15 years older than you. Everybody. Yeah. And I'm talking about really talented people. And that's not lost on me. That is not lost on me. But it also doesn't encumber me to think that that's all I'm worth.
Well, the interesting thing that's coming to me right now, Eric, is the very thing that was getting you all those promotions was the thing that was ensuring that you weren't going to stay.
It's exactly right. The head of the sales organization, now this is a $2 billion plus sales organization. And you know what he looked at me and said? He said, where there's smoke, there's fire. That's the way he viewed me.
Yeah.
In other words, he's not satisfied. He's not going to be the team player we need. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I was risk to him. And he was he elevated himself to be the head of the sales organization for a multi-billion-dollar company where the competition is stiff for that. So it was no lack of talent and it was no lack of perception. As a matter of fact, his perception was spot on, as it turns out, because
it's interesting.
Yeah.
It feels to me like, a conversation with a former client of mine is fresh in my mind, and large organization, lots of bureaucracy, and just the skills that it takes to succeed in a larger organization are very different than the skills that it takes to succeed as an entrepreneur.
I agree. I was like really good at playing the corporate game, but I was also really bad at it. And here's what I mean by that. I was really good at embracing brands, corporate culture, never running contrary. Never did I ever do anything other than advocate wholeheartedly for the people that were paying me. Trust me. I mean, I was the most effective and best. That's why I got promoted all the time. I was really good at that. What I was not really good at was job descriptions, towing the line when it didn't make sense, being a company man, as they would call it. I was always a free range kind of guy, and again, I use the word entrepreneur. That's what they would use on me. I didn't even look at it that way. I just looked at it as there's a job to be done and I'm going to figure out the best way to do it. And job description, I don't really care about that. I don't care about much of anything other than there's a job to be done and there's consistency and I'm going to fulfill that and I'm going to fulfill it to the best of my responsibility. And I don't really care, what anybody else thinks, and I'm going to let the chips fall. And that's the way I approached life from day one. And so I was never that was the smoke, there's fire guy, right? He's really good at all this stuff, but man, there's something not right there, Like if I say jump, he's not going to say how high. He's going to say, well, why do you want me to jump?
Yeah. Why aren't we jumping over here instead of over there?
Why?
Okay. So Eric, let's go to 2006.
Okay. Please do.
What is the moment that you decide, okay, I'm going to promote myself out of this corporate career. I'm going to jump into the entrepreneurial space. Like what was the collection of circumstances that made you say, okay, 13 years in, or however many years it was in, the 2-year plan is over. I'm going for it.
I wish there was like a definitive moment I could tell you about, Jeff. I mean, oh my God. Like, oh my God, I woke up this morning and I had a dream and I realized
the birds were singing.
Go for it. Go for it, Eric. I mean, you gotta do this thing. It wasn't like that at all. I mean, it was more a realization that all along I had, and probably a few life events pushed me to the edge of actually doing it. One was, two, in 2000 and 2001 were the birth of my sons, Joseph and Joshua, and 13 months apart. And so that's life-changing stuff, right? So there was that, which makes you very introspective if you're a human, right? You're thinking about what am I doing and where am I going and how does this impact, not me, how does it impact my family, my wife, my kids? And so there was a big part of that going on. That was all going on while I was living in northern New Jersey. And then 3 promotions happened. And so my last promotion was in, I guess, January of 2003, or excuse me, December of 2003, right around there. And I took over shopper marketing, and we called it trade planning and promotion at the time, but it was shopper marketing and trade finance, basically how we spent and marketed our monies through the channels of distribution. And so I had the dream job, and I was looking at my boss's job and my boss's boss's job and my boss's boss's job, who was the CEO of the entire Pfizer Corporation. Wyatt, I use them interchangeably because they got bought out. They, I realized that, oh my God, I'm in my early 30s. I've got these 2 kids. I've never fulfilled my 2-year plan. And it just was dawning on me. And I was like, I don't want my boss's job. I don't want my boss's job. What am I doing? Because I'm setting myself up for just that.
Right.
And that's if everything goes perfectly.
Right. If everything goes perfectly, my next 3 jobs are jobs I don't like.
Exactly. And so that reality hit on me. And so I started going, you know what? I'm going to start looking for another job. And that job is going to be me buying a company or starting a company. And at that same time, it was a confluence of events. My dad, who was down in Atlanta, Georgia, was approached by a German company, literally at the same time I'm doing all of this. And he knew what I was doing, and I knew what he was doing. He got an offer he couldn't refuse, and a German company bought his company in Peachtree City, Georgia. And so all this was going down at the same time. I'm trying to exit corporate America, and we just talked it through. And even though I had left home, not because of anything weird, because I was 17. I was a little bit young for my age. I hadn't skipped any grades or anything, but I was a good student. And 17, I went to college. I had never worked professionally with my dad. And matter of fact, when I left Dad's home, I was a 17-year-old kid, and struck out on my own. And here I am 15 plus years later, and we're talking about going into business each other. So it was the great unknown. But here's what was true. We had a strong relationship. I trusted him. And he didn't know what to do next with his life because all he was doing was replacing himself at that company and then moving on to whatever his next thing was, which he didn't know what it was. And I was moving on to my next thing because I was bound and determined that I was leaving corporate America, period. So it was literally that confluence that just happened.
Yeah. And how did you and your dad figure out what you were going to do together?
We didn't really know. The first year was we did know that we were not going to relocate him to New Jersey. I was going to move. I was going to move to Atlanta for all kinds of reasons. Most of them very personal, cost of living and lifestyle. And oh, by the way, most of my family is in the Southeast, so it made all the sense in the world that I moved down here anyway. And my kids were still toddlers, so it was going to be not a dramatic thing for them at all.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Right.
they're like, cool, next vacation, right? And that's the way it was going to be at that age, and they were fortunate enough for that age. And so it was easy for me to relocate, probably not so much for 60-year-olds to relocate. So we made that decision first. And then he spent the year basically stepping down as chairman of the board and CEO of his company and replacing himself. And so he did a year transition. And during that year, I relocated the family. I secured the office space. I did all the branding. I did a whole bunch of stuff. I did everything that started Neri Capital Partners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's exactly
and
how
so
that happened.
if there was a driving force in what you were wanting to accomplish, do, focus on, I mean, I know, one thing that's clear from looking at the stuff that you've put out in the world is this focus on people getting the most value out of what they've built. Was that clear at the time, or did that grow and develop as you grew Neri Capital?
It definitely grew and developed because 2006 and 2007, I was literally in the mode of, oh my gosh, there are nothing but a bunch of business brokers out there serving the lower middle market. And we actually had my dad, who had a ton of M&A experience and entrepreneurial experience, and you had me, who, not that I consider corporate America to be good training grounds for entrepreneurs. What it did teach me was discipline and taught me a lot of great things. And I'm very grateful for all of that. And we brought that to bear, and we were helping people in 2006 when we opened, in 2007, basically business owners ready to exit. And we were selling businesses right and left, and it was easy. I mean, it was
was the market. I mean, we all know what's coming in a couple of years, right?
I know.
And so were things pretty frothy then? Like people were like, "Hey,
oh my gosh!" I was sitting there going, "I can't believe I got off my 2-year plan. Why didn't I do this for the last 50?" I'm kicking myself in the ass, right? I'm making more money than I've ever made, and I was making good money in corporate America by corporate America standards. I was making good money, I was making, having fun. Every job was different. I could get off the phone with one entrepreneur in the morning and be on the phone with another entrepreneur and close a deal that same day. And that's what my life was in 2006 and 2000. I'm like, why didn't I do this? What in the world was happening, that held me back from this golden land, right?
Yeah.
It was so wonderful. And then the recession hit in 2008, and everything came to a screeching halt, literally.
Yeah.
Everything came to a screeching halt. All of my deals in progress died. Every single one of them. We were in the business of great companies with a great reason to sell. We were not in the business, and never have been, never will be, in the business of liquidations and bankruptcies. That's not our business. We are great companies with a great reason to sell. And we'll get to this when you question me about my why and what our value proposition is and all the rest of it. But that is exactly the way we've been from the very beginning. But here's what we were. We were transaction dependent. And when transactions came to a screeching halt, which they did, basically at the end of 2007 and really 2008 to 2011, 3 years of this, I look back and said, oh my gosh, why did I ever leave corporate America? Holy crap. Trust me, my marriage, my wife, my household income, everything evaporated. And I tried to spin myself out of this. That was the other thing that was naive that I did. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm just smarter and better than everybody else. I can just throw marketing at this thing. When all the smart people were just hunkering down and weathering the storm, and I was trying to fight the storm. So did I learn a lesson? I learned a huge one. But when I emerged in 2011, 2012, when I emerged, my company emerged, we emerged a much stronger, better company, and it's what we are today. And it's all because of that. Or else we might have been caught in that transaction cycle, like most of my clients, right? They're just jobs. They're making money. They're having fun. They're not building value. Now I build value for my clients and for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one thing, if I have a client who's going through something difficult, or, I've used this on myself, if I'm going through something difficult and it's something that looks bad, if I reframe it and say, what if this is actually the best thing that ever happened to me?
I wish I was philosophical like that at the time. I was grasping at straws, frankly.
Yeah. But looking back, you say it was, right?
I was philosophical in the sense that I was determined to get through it. You know what I mean? Right. So I didn't know the path. I didn't know anything. I read a book, and I tell the people this all the time. I read a book called The $10 Trillion Opportunity, and it was by the founders. It's the founding principles of the Exit Planning Institute, which many of your listeners today will know that the Exit Planning Institute is the foundation for what's called the CEPA designation, which is the Certified Exit Planning Advisor. And not because I had foresight, not because of anything. It's because I was in that point of desperation, and I read that book, and it was like, oh my gosh, this all makes sense to me, because it was not transaction focused. Mm-hmm. It was focused on how do people that run companies, how do entrepreneurs build value? How do they build value that's sustainable? And they may sell it someday. Every value transfers. It either goes away, disappears, or gets transferred through a sale of a company, or maybe I pass it to my kids or my employees. It doesn't matter. But it's like death and taxes. And it opened my mind to there is a world out there that is not transaction focused. Transaction is just a piece of the equation. And so I went and got certified in exit planning, and I was number 97 is my credential. Uh-huh. And I was the first 100. And again, I tell people it wasn't because I was, foresight or all that. It was because I literally was in that place I just described to you. I was hungry and desperate and looking for some meeting and looking for some way to say, hey, I can help people sell their businesses, which I still do today in spades. Uh-huh. But I'm here to help them figure out where they are and figure out how they can get better, how they can create more value. And when they exit on top, on their own terms, whatever that means to them.
Right. So what do you think is the thing that most founders who are thinking about an exit mess up?
I think most founders are like, it's the human thing, and I'm guilty of this as well. So I had to do a long look in the mirror for myself on this one, is at the end of the day, we think about what needs to be accomplished today. Uh-huh. We think about our companies like jobs. Uh-huh. Okay. And it's a fatal flaw. When you think of your company like a job and you're good at your job, you're going to make money. But you may or may not create value. Mm. And I always say, and I put the quotes on my website, and you'll hear me say this ad nauseum, but I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit here, but it's basically, hey, the money you make, in other words, the distributions and the W-2 you take out of your company, the money you make, that's a job. The value you create, that's a business. That's an entrepreneur. Right. And I don't want to be the guy that made a lot of money and had nothing to show for it.
How much do you think those things conflict with each other? The job part of it and the value part of it, because it seems like there might be different incentives for each of those.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're in direct conflict. In fact, most of the time they kind of run side by side. In other words, if your company makes millions of dollars a year, and as you, the owner, make millions of dollars a year, great. The company's worth something. Here's where they run into conflict. When you think about things just in terms of the money that you make all kinds of bad decisions, right? Uh-huh. So think about it like a third party thinks about your business. not the way you think about it as an owner, not the way I think about Neri Capital as I'm the owner of this business, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that. It's not that at all. It's the way somebody else thinks about my business.
Uh-huh.
Can Eric Togneri get hit by a bus and it not impact them?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And conversely, or not conversely, but can all the other factors that are just like that. In other words, most of my clients are relatively small businesses, right? Under $20 million revenue type companies. That's the vast majority of my businesses. I deal in what I call the lower of the lower middle market, right? I'm in small business, but they're above Main Street, but they're small businesses. And guess what? They usually have like one great sales guy, and a lot of times that gal is the owner of the company. She's kicking butt, or he's kicking butt, whoever it is, whether it's the owner or one of their key people. Well, just like the owner of the company can get hit by a bus, so can your best salesperson.
Right.
And does all your sales dry up because of that? And your vendor relationships. I'm relying on one vendor that supplies me with
key customer is 70% of your business.
In my case, my vendors are information, right? I license software. That's what I do in my company. But in other people, it's like, oh my gosh, I have a construction company right now, and he's got multiple vendors because he's smart about it. But he's got one key vendor, but he can replace them. Do your vendors, are they replaceable?
Right.
And so you have to think about risk assessment. And so I could take you through recurring revenue models, which everybody loves to talk about because everybody wants to be on a subscription business. There's a reason for that. It's because it's predictable.
Right.
And so we all strive for these things. And what I try to do with folks and in my own life and in my own business is try to figure out, how do I make my company the least risky investment for somebody else? So here's what I have to shoo off. I've got people begging to invest in my company, and I'm fending them off. I'm fending them off because I want to retain equity. Most companies are so reliant on the owners or their business model that they couldn't get money if they wanted to.
Right.
And so it's not a braggadocious thing. It's an intentional thing. Any company can be like what I'm creating here at Neri Capital Partners and What Is My Biz Worth. Any company can be that. That's what I try to tell people. And what I try to tell people is the whole thing starts with valuation. Because if you don't know where you are and why you're here, how can you begin to plan where you want to be? Even if your plans change, you got to know where you are.
Yeah, I think I love that valuation point, and I think that's a great lens. Like when I think about some of the clients that I work with, and they could be in that 20 million range, they could be a little bit bigger.
Whatever size.
They will be, they make decisions in the short term that make sense. And one of those decisions in the short term that makes sense is, well, it would cost me money to hire people, so I'm just going to do all the jobs myself.
Oh my gosh.
And that's one that just kills them long term because they're 100%.
You know how many businesses are held back, how much money is laid, in the trillions of this one statement. If I want to get it done right, I got to do it myself.
Exactly. I learned that from my dad.
That is the killer of all businesses.
Yeah.
That's a job, by the way. And I have no doubt that somebody can say that definitively with a job. If you say that with a business, you suck. Honestly.
Yeah. Well, and even if you are, you're the right person to do the job exactly the way you want to do it. But if you're not a finance person, if you're not a salesperson, if you're not a product design person, your ideas on how to do that job are not the best ideas.
And let's get over ourselves. Right?
Yeah.
I'm really good at doing the job, but guess what? I found out as I got away from doing the job, there are a lot of people that are better at doing my job than I was. You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and the owner,
eat some humble pie and realize that, I don't know what Elon Musk does, but I'm guessing that he does not pilot spaceships into orbit. He's got a pilot that does that, right?
And that's the difference between the owner mentality and the employee mentality. The owner mentality is you find the best person for the job, and 99.9% of the time it's not you.
It's so easy to say, isn't it? It rolls off our lips.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to do.
But when you're in that place,
it's so hard to do.
Like
that same executive I was telling you about that ran the couple $1 billion sales organization that said, where there's smoke, there's fire, where there's Eric. One of his other famous little sayings was, and you'll probably guess he's from Chattanooga, Tennessee, because where there's smoke, there's fire. Right. And he also said, Eric, it's hard to take the needle from the vein. And what he was referring to was deploying resources from Walmart to CVS and Target, where I knew that they could be a better Smith. And I was in charge of the budgets, or at least advising on the budgets. He was ultimately in charge of the budget because it was his organization. I was basically, I had a big title and big responsibility, but I was an advisor. Right. And I would tell him, hey, take these dollars from here and put them here, and they will give you this return on investment, right? And he didn't doubt it, but it was still, it's hard to take the needle from the vein. Well, the same thing goes for business owners, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
We know, oh my gosh, I'm a business owner. I can make $1 million a year doing what I'm doing. But there's also the phrase, Jeff, you'll love this phrase because you've heard it a million times, but it applies to this more so than anything. What got you here won't get you there.
Exactly.
Right? You just hit your ceiling. That's where you got.
Yeah. Yeah. Or another version of it, and I heard this from a client. I got a good thing going.
Oh, of course.
Why would I want to risk that?
Oh, and this is where it comes to selling. Oh my gosh. They sit there and they're like, holy crap, I'm going to sell I make $1 million. I'm just making numbers up. I make $1 million a year running this business. And you're telling me you're going to sell my business for $5 million. Well, why in the hell don't I just do this for another 5 years? And I'm like, well, isn't that the reason you came to me in the first place?
Right.
Because you don't want to do this another 5 years.
Right.
And you get the value that you created. And I'm here to make sure you get as much of that value as I can wring out of it. That's my job to do that. And that's why you hired me. But let's get more to why you're doing this in the first place. Because life is not just what you make this year. Again, that's a job. What have you created, and when do you exit? And exit on your terms. And if you never want to exit, my dad is 83 years old and still working in our business full time.
Yeah.
That's by choice.
I want to be your dad. I love that.
That's by choice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If that is the thing that brings you alive, by all means. I mean, there are people who are working at 83 because they have to. No. But that's not your dad. That's like, I love this. Why would I give this up?
I mean, when I talk to him, he's like, well, what else am I going to do?
Yeah.
I'm a sound mind. My body's not what it used to be. So I'm not out there beating the streets like you are, Eric, Yeah. But I can hobble to my desk and talk to entrepreneurs all day long. And he loves doing it. So that's his exit. Right? That's his exit. I talk to people all the time and they're like, well, Eric, you help people sell their businesses. So you must be trying to somehow coerce people or, encourage them, maybe is a better word, to sell their business to a third party, because that's where my company makes a lot of money.
That's where you make your money. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, there is truth to that. And and that's why I'm transparent about it. I go, but trust me. And trust me by my actions and by what I tell you. I don't care what your exit is. I know I'm going to get a percentage of people that's their option. And yes, I do want to be there in the front of the line for those people. But my valuation service, my talk about value building, my talk about value creation, my talk about, hey, treat your company like it's a business that you're trying to create value in, not just a job that makes you money.
Yeah.
All of that holds true regardless. If you tell me that, oh my gosh, and it doesn't look like it's going to be my path for my company, but I would love nothing better, Jeff. I've got a 25-year-old and a 24-year-old son. One of them is an electrician, and the other is in special operations with the Navy organization, U.S. Navy. Okay, who knows where he is right now? He told me he's in Virginia, but he might be in the Middle East because he can't tell me where he is. You know what I mean? So these guys are not going to take over my company, most likely. I mean, we'll see 10 years from now, but most likely. So I probably am going to have to sell my company to a third party. That's probably my exit whenever that day comes when I transfer ownership. But until then, and I can keep the dream alive, I think most entrepreneurs, if they had their choice, would hand their business to their kids. But guess what? You don't hand a business to anybody unless you want it to fail. Your kids buy your business. The business's cash flow pays you. And if you want to leave your estate to your kids, that's your own business. But the business should be independent of that. You know what I mean? So you can give your business to your kids. You can give them the red carpet, but you darn sure better sell that business to them and have the business cash flow it. Yeah. Or else that's why all these they're like, oh my God, the second, third generation, all these businesses fail. It's because they gave them. You sell them because you created value that's worth selling. And oh, by the way, your kids are grateful that they're able to be in the front of the line and probably buy it and not at a premium.
Well, and also the kids have to be the best potential buyers. Maybe someone else is a better buyer because they have the skill set to make more money out of the business. That way, then maybe you don't sell it to your kids. Maybe you're like, you know what? I want to take care of my kids, but here's how I'm going to take care of my kids. I'm going to establish a trust and put them in charge. Right. You know what I mean? I mean, there are all kinds of options for transferring value to your children. You don't have to run a business into the ground in order to do it. But if your kids are the best potential owner, which happens, and I'm not being political in this, think about the Donald Trump organization. It appears from an outsider's perspective that his kids are really good at running that company. Okay, I don't know if that's a fact or not, but there are all kinds of circumstances where the kids are really good at running the company. So I'm not against it, but I'm not for it. But it's independent of the relationship. It's
independent. It's just, are they the best ones? And maybe they're the best ones because they've been working on the shop floor since they were 12 years old and they get it and they know how you run it and it's in their DNA.
Yeah, I had a client who he was the second generation. His father effectively had founded and grown the business, but he'd been working. He was the successor, but he had been working in that business for 20 years, 20 plus years, knew it better than probably anyone. Oh my God. And his brother had done the same thing and was clearly not a fit. So, who knows?
And key employees, whoever it might be, So
exactly.
The one principle I'm always going to fall back on, Jeff, and this is what I want everybody that is in my orbit to understand. It is the value that you create. Right. Yeah. And once you've created something of value, then the decision becomes who's going to be the steward of that. Am I going to sell it to somebody? Am I going to sell it to my kids? Am I going to sell it to my employees? Am I going to sell it to somebody I don't hardly know, that maybe can do it better than I did it? Whatever it is. But I created something. Yeah. And I'm the steward of deciding what happens with that something, even if and unfortunately, there are many entrepreneurs out here that do this. They just work less and less and less and turn off the lights. And all the money's left on the table.
Yeah.
Well, that serves
So
nobody. That serves
yeah. So I wanna take a little bit of a turn with you, because you've talked about this notion of building value. And I think you realized a while ago that, hey, I can build this thing, I can bring in other people to do these transactions, but I'm kind of limited in terms of how much value I can make doing transactions. You came up with an idea to build value for your organization, to scale your business model. Yeah, in a lot of ways, you're taking your own medicine, right? Can you walk us
I
through
looked in the
that?
mirror.
And
Oh my God.
yeah, what is my biz worth, and where that came from, and talk us through that.
Yeah. So the genesis really was, I've been preaching this message for, 20 years really, but
Yeah.
really living it for the last 15, of everything that you and I have been talking about today. Here's the thing. About 5 years ago, I took a long, hard look in the mirror, and it was really prompted by a client that was a real estate client. And she was a power producer, real estate agent. I mean, making a couple $1,000,000 a year type of real estate agent,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Huge living and all of the rest. And she was selling real estate right and left, and upscale real estate. And so she was making a good living and had done it for decades. And she was getting to retirement age, and she had a place. She was here in Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm located, and she had a place over in Hilton Head, South Carolina. A lovely place for those that have not been there. Awesome, place. And she had a property there and was ready to go ahead and move there full time and go into. She would never retire. She's a little bit like my dad, but semi-retire, right? And her real estate company, when I valued it, was not worthless, but not worth a lot.
Uh-huh.
Because she was the company, essentially.
Yeah. So she goes,
she had six or
what's
eight
left
agents.
Yeah,
she had 6 or 8 agents. They were all making a little bit of a living, but they were typical real estate agents, right?
Uh-huh.
And I don't mean that derogatory for all you real estate people. You know what I'm talking about. It was a part-time profession, basically.
Yeah.
And so when she was going to go away, the business was going to go away. And also, she was a project-based business, right? We call them transactions in our world. But she got paid when she sold houses. I get paid when I sell businesses, right?
Right.
Starting to see the mirror, right? It's starting to look a lot like me, isn't it? And she was, we did a valuation on the company, and she looked at the company and she's like, I cannot believe that my company is only worth this much. And I'm like, well, you are the company. Number one, you're looking to retire. And oh, by the way, your company is basically worth the inventory that you have. In other words, the homes that you have engaged and your ability to bring those to a closing table. That's what your company is worth. Right? Yeah. That's what a transaction company is worth. The reason I go through this elongated story is that looked exactly like my transaction-based M&A company. I was only as good as the next deal. Now, I had a little bit more people. I had my dad. I had a little bit more diversity, but not much. It was the same exact principle. And so when I looked and did our valuation, of course, we peel back the onion when we do valuations. We find out everything about a business owner, everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. We find everything out. And it so happened that under the very bottom, if you guys use QuickBooks, you'll be familiar with this, or whatever accounting software. There's usually a bottom line, and then there's other income and expenses, right? And that's usually between the bottom line and the real bottom line, which is what you pay taxes on. And in the other income was basically 25 grand in her case. And I asked her, well, what's that? Because it just said other income. Oh, that's the referral fees I get for the property management companies. And I'm like, well, tell me more about that. It turns out 50% of the residential real estate that she was selling, this is upscale. This is like basically 700,000 plus homes, so upscale real estate, not mansions, but upscale real estate. The half of what she was selling were to two groups, one out of China and one out of Canada, and it was investment properties.
Mm.
And so they were buying the real estate. She would refer them to a property management company, and they would pay her a pittance as a referral fee. And it amounted to 25 grand, but it was nothing.
Yeah.
And she was out of the equation. She made her money on the sale of the real estate, and they took it over as property manager. So I'm like looking at that and I'm like, well, you want to actually make some money, because I knew property management and recurring revenue is king, right? Predictability, risk, all that. I'm like, have you ever thought about buying a property management company? Of course I went there, because that's what I do. I buy and sell businesses. She's like, I can do you one better. I know a general contractor that can run, who's in semi-retirement, that could run the property management business from the standpoint of actually doing stuff, fixing things, subcontracting lawn maintenance and plumbing and heating and air and all the rest. I know a guy that can do all that. And she's like, the contract side of things, that's what I do all day, every day. So I can just add that to my workload. Within 2 years, she's 7x the size of her business.
Wow.
And the person that bought her business said, keep the real estate.
Yeah.
I don't even want your real estate company. I'm a property management company. I just want the property management. And that's how that happened. And you want to talk about a light bulb, man? That was the light bulb for me. Like, my business looked exactly like hers. And I've already done the valuations on my company. And oh my gosh, I built an area capital and it's worth several $1 million. And it's fantastic. Or am I building a machine that's worth tens of millions of dollars? So guess what happened? When I started thinking about that, that's when I bought whatismybizworth.com. That's when I started thinking, I don't care what kind of business you have. And I've got a project by project. I sell businesses and I help people buy businesses. Business. Yeah, we do a little consulting and a little side work, but really that's the bread and butter of our business is transactions. Always has been and still is today. For every 100 valuations that I do, Jeff, 20 become clients that want to sell their business. And because of the way we do things around here, we sell 95+% of those businesses. So we close, if we take a company to market, we sell it. Right. There's a whole lot of work that goes into that. I won't get into in today's conversation, but rest assured, it's money in the bank. So here's the point. How do I not sell 100 valuations? How do I sell 1,000? How do I sell 5,000 valuations? And keep that ratio going.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing with my business. So I'm practicing what I preach. But I looked a whole lot like that real estate company once upon a time. And I would challenge anybody out there. I don't care what kind of company they have. If I figured out how to make valuations a predictable stream of revenue for my company, I can tell you what, I don't care what you have. You can figure out what your valuation is. You can figure out what your property management company is. You can figure out whatever it is, because these are not obvious candidates. We're not Netflix, where you buy a subscription every month. We are not an insurance company where you re-up your policy every 6 months or a year. We are not a subscription-based business, but we figured out a way to become predictable and to replicate it and to scale it. And so we're so excited about it. And I'm excited about it for all of my clients too, because I'm like sitting here going, let me do a valuation for you. If you're ready to go, because life makes you ready to go, or you're just ready to go, I'll get you there. I can do that right now. And I'm going to close you because that's what I do. But if you're not, or if you don't need me for that, what I want to do is tell you where you are today and why you are where you're here and what you can do about it and start thinking about these things, because that's when you create the value. I know I sound like a preacher. I know, because I believe all of it.
Well, I love your passion, Eric. And I'm wondering, like this passion is clear. What do you see as your mission? What do you see as your legacy? Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah. So my end game, and this is just my end game, guys. So I'm not trying to say, hey, guys, map yourself after Eric Togneri. Not at all. My end game has been work in progress back from when I first started that first job, when I thought I was going to be an entrepreneur, and within 2 years, and I stuck in corporate America for 15. Right?
Yeah.
My path is my path, and so I want to caveat it with that. But here is my journey. I am going to build this thing, and I'm going to exit. And exit to me doesn't mean necessarily that I'm going to sell this company. I may. Mm-hmm. But I'm 56 years old as we sit today, and I've got a plan by age 60. That's the marker I've thrown down for myself. Nobody else has thrown it down. And God willing, I'll live and I'll be healthy and I'll be able to achieve this. At age 60, I will exit this company. And by that, I mean I will exit off the org chart of this company. Uh-huh. If I want to stay on the org chart, that'll be my own choice, but I can leave it or stay there. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
That's my, and what do I want to do? Oh, Eric, well, you don't sound like the guy that's going to quit at 60. Hopefully not. I'm not saying I want to be 83 years old like my dad and still grinding. That'll be my choice when I get to be 83, if God willing, I ever make it, but yeah. The point is that at age 60, I want to be there. And my personal goal right now is I'm going to create a family office essentially. And I'm going to use the thousands of valuations that we do a year as the seed, as the origination. I'm going to be able to be on the front row of viewing all of these companies, and I'm going to make a run at buying all of these that I want to buy. And that's what I'm going to do, is build a portfolio of companies. And that's what I hope to spend the 60s and the balance of my life doing. That's my grand plan. Best laid plans, right? I don't know if that'll happen or not, but that's the grand plan for me. And I think everybody should have a grand plan, whatever it is.
How do you know what your grand plan is?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Do you think that's something?
Other than I arrived upon it. I tell you where I found mine. I went to a company called scalable.co. I'll give them a shout out for free. No vested interest. Ryan Dice, who I consider, to be a mentor in the way I think about things. He talked about this whole notion of exiting and how you exit. And when I went to one of his events, which basically were 1,000 entrepreneurs that looked exactly like me, right? Young, relatively young. What I mean is not in the twilight, people wanting to grow and build value in their companies. That's what the Scalable Co. is all about. And I watched what they were doing, and they were doing what I described. Yeah, they were teaching people how to scale and grow and create value. They were doing all of that stuff. But they were also a fund and investing in companies. And I'm oh my God, that is exactly what I want to do.
So it's that combination
it's not just helping.
We're going to help you grow, and then if we like you, we're going to buy you.
We're going to buy you right? Or invest in you and grow alongside you. Yeah. Right. So it doesn't mean when I say I'm going to buy a company, it doesn't mean I buy 100% of the company. It may mean that. It may be maybe even in the right situation, a minority investor, although I highly recommend against that as a general rule of thumb. But I'm a minority investor in every investment I have in the stock market, right? By the way, so minority investments are not bad things. But if you really want to control it, you got to be a majority investor. But nonetheless, it doesn't mean I ask an owner to take all the chips off the table. Maybe I give them the resources to do what they haven't been able to do, which is take it to the next level. I don't care. I'm going to use every investment opportunity as an individual decision, but I am setting up the organization that's going to allow me to do that. So my mission for the next 3.5 years is to build that organization so that I can build the next company, which is the family fund, which is the Neri Capital.
So as we bring this to a close, Eric, what's one thing you've learned about yourself in this process?
I would say, this is going to sound crazy in light of everything that I've talked to you about for the last several hours. It is humbleness. It really is. Because at the end of the day, what I'm able to achieve by myself is stupidly small. What I'm able to achieve through my partnerships, through my alliances, through an organization that is way bigger than me. I would say that if I had to chalk it all away, it was the realization that, Eric, the weight of the world is not on you to produce and be an individual contributor. It's on your ability to lead and have a vision. And yeah, with that becomes a whole different weight, but it's different. It's different than that mentality that says, if you want to get the job done right, you got to do it yourself. Right? It's the antithesis of that. And there is truth in that statement, but there's also a ceiling inherent in that statement. And I look at myself and my career and everything I've been able to accomplish. Trust me, when I was doing great things in corporate America, it wasn't because I was doing great things personally. There was a piece of that in there, but it was because the teams I was leading were doing great things. Right? So your definition doesn't become do it yourself to get it done right. It becomes, how am I building a company and a system and a process and an organization that gets it done right? Not in spite of me, but because I created it and it's self-sustaining and it lives without me.
Right.
You know,
and you'll leave
so
that to whoever.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
Eric, thank you.
I just, I would leave everybody with that notion that start redefining your success as not the money you make, the value you create. If you keep that in your mind every day and in every activity that you do, you're going to make all the money you want and then some.
Right.
So it's not abandoning the money you make. We all need that. I got mortgages. I've got second homes. I got everything. We all need that. But the value we create, that's our legacy.
Mm-hmm.
I'll leave it at that.
Well, thank you, Eric. Thank you for coming on the Pick Now podcast. We'll put links so people can reach out to you. We'll put all that stuff in the show notes. It's just an incredibly inspiring journey. Thank you all for watching or listening to this episode of the Pick Now podcast. I'm Jeff Munn, and I'll see you next time.